Well, hello and welcome back to the Mariner. Well, thank you very much to everyone who's been commenting on the videos, and thank you to those who connected with me about doing the Fastnet. If you want to race this summer or in the autumn in Malta, email me, csmthemariner@gmail.com. The website's going live soon. We've got more than half the people we need to do this already, so we are going to look at look at this lot behind me. We'll be fine. Don't worry. This is it's just a flesh wound. Okay, we have got some things that are going very, very well here. We've been working on the solar panel system here, and you can see there's some trouble there. We'll get into that in just a second, but there is some good news. If you're a sailing geek, you'll be like, oh, and if you're not, you'll be like, oh. In here, we have this new box, and it has a very small number, 1 amp. To me, that is the most amazing thing I've seen in about 10 years. We've had this boat now on and off 3 years, and I say on and off because it's been in use and then it's been in storage, it's been in use. So for the entire time, a massive problem with this boat has been the fact that if you leave it, unless you completely disconnect the batteries, and even if you do disconnect the batteries, if any moisture gets on top of the batteries, you can come back and the batteries are somewhat discharged. Now, it might seem obvious, get some solar cells, but it has taken me this amount of time to get to a point where you think, okay, I will deal with that. Instead of just coming and getting the generator going and all that kind of stuff. And by generator, I don't mean some lovely built-in unit from Fisher Panda. I mean the giant, like, construction site generator that's at the back here. Get the engine start battery going, get the engine going. And then the engine's alternator sees these super dead batteries at like 24.2 or something, which is pretty discharged for a 24-volt system. And then it's struggling with those, and it never quite gets there. We are getting on top of charging, and we are getting on top of power for the boat. In today's world, where all the electronics are so useful, my phone can literally, I can navigate, as you well know, from here in Nova Scotia to England to the Fastnet race, and do the Fastnet race using only my phone. Between its ability to do marine traffic and connect wirelessly to a radar and have navionics and everything else, basically I can navigate across the planet with this phone. But I have to recharge it. And that's always been a problem for me, because there's always like this mega hard problem of like, where's the power coming from? Race boats don't really have loads of solar cells on the deck. Race boats would be aesthetically as pleasing as possible. If you've got like a round the world boat or some kind of record setting boat, you might well have solar cells like this on the deck and more of them. But I think for most race boat owners, they're not getting into this kind of thing. I staved off that for years, because there's a lot of money in doing this as well, right? You got to slowly like build up your treasure chest before you can do this stuff. But now we've got this very, very small achievement here, these 3 guys, which are the culmination of buying all the panels very slowly since the company went bankrupt during COVID, buying the MPPT controller, buying all the wire, getting all the connectors, doing all of that, and suffering problems, which we'll come to and have a look at this in a second. This little guy's not feeling so well. But suddenly there's power going in the boat, and that is so transformative in so many ways. 24 volts going into the boat right now from these solar cells means that when I come back, it's Saturday morning now. I've been here 2 days. I'm going to leave this morning and go home and be with the family for the weekend. When I come back on Monday, the batteries are going to be better than when I left. And this is the first time in a decade I can say that, unless like someone's stolen the boat and they're driving around running the engine. So it's a small thing, but seeing that means that I can get the water maker going, which means I could have half a ton of water sitting on board the boat, which I can use for flushing down the bilges, washing off sails. All of these things, which are part of the ongoing maintenance of a boat, require at the bottom of them power, and it's power that we've been missing. So excited about that. I've got the kind of angle worked out here on deck. Great. I started putting these ones in, and then started to really look at these panels and try and understand what I've got. This panel is pooched, right? Completely pooched. How's it got so pooched? Basically, it got left on deck during a storm. I was like, yeah, I want to do this, I want to do that, and I didn't secure them down. It was half under these lines as those ones are. It started flapping, shattered itself. So am I very worried about it? If it was a very expensive solar panel, like is it Solara or Soliban? What are those ones called? The very expensive ones, the semi-rigid panels with the lovely tread deck on top of them. They're $600 odd each, right? $600 US for one panel. We'd be looking at thousands just to put these on. These are $100. I think these are $100 Canadian even, from Amazon. So what I'm looking at is that instead of thinking I'm going to put the best solar system on the boat and it will never fail and it will be my grandchildren, no, it's probably going to get trashed at some point. So at $100, you could potentially set off with two, like tucked away somewhere on a boat like this, where volume's not really an issue. And then if something goes wrong, you can get them back off. Because I have been in that situation. And when I say I've been in that situation, I've been in that situation 1,000 miles south of Perth in Western Australia, trying to race between Cape Town and Wellington, and having to stop racing and come off the racing line, come 500-600 miles north to get into like sunnier weather. So my tiny little solar capacity, which was left on my boat, would charge my batteries and get me back into being able to complete the voyage to Wellington. Having to make a decision because there's no power on the boat, I've got to stop racing, was huge when I did that Velux race, and seriously damaged what I was doing in that race overall. If I'd have had a bit more of a sensible system like this with redundancies, the ones which had, what happened in my system was I had 3 connected together and one of them failed. But because everything was hardwired in, I couldn't really get them out, and I didn't have any more panels to replace it with. And I didn't have enough knowledge either to be able to do that. So this time what I'm going to do is the panels are going to be secured down with 5200s, like something that is a glue essentially. It's for putting deck hardware down. It's an adhesive, it's sealant, but it's like super sticky. It's the stickiest stuff on the planet. If that's around the edge of the panel, and then there's more something like silicone in between, in the middle, I'm thinking I can knife that back off and change the panel out quite easily. The other thing I've done to help that system is down here, I made a mistake. Who would have thought that I'd possibly make a mistake? And I ran all of these wires to the panels. You can see over here, right? 1, 2, 3 wires. And my idea was 12 volts. I guess that was my idea, was I'm working with 12 volts, so they're going to be run in parallel. Well, we can't do that when you're trying to run a 24 volt system. So I had to bring them all back and then do this kind of daisy chain thing here. Don't worry about what this connector is. This is me trying to work out how to do this job. But they're all now in series, and that series gives us that 60 volts that we saw there, and that's a nice amount for that MPPT controller from Renogy, another cheap unit, to convert what's going on in the cells down into a nice 28 volts, something like that, charging current for the batteries. What this means is that this will be mounted just up here. I've got a little, I had thought I was going to use this. I don't think I am now. I'm going to delete that and just have up in the roof here a little system which clearly is yet to be finalized, but where I can access each panel's like connections. And then if something goes wrong and one of the panels in the series system goes offline, I can come in here and rewire. If I have to rewire 2 together, I can do that, or cross connect, or whatever it's going to do. So it's going to be like a place up here in the roof where we can get at the connections, because otherwise, you know, when you get we can show you on deck, when you get a photovoltaic cell, it has a short and a long lead on it, right? The short one's the positive, I understand, although feel free to correct me. That short lead there, when it goes through the deck, because the deck is like 2 inches thick, because it's a Kevlar boat with a composite in the deck, that alone makes it a complicated problem. Because if we look up in here, like this in here, that's already the connection. We're doing the connection within like 2.5 inches of the deck. So the idea of like being at sea and taking down the headlining and ferreting around and making new connections, like impossible. So what I'm going to do is these lines will all be here. And then when it gets time that, okay, we're going to replace a panel, Chris, then I can come around, you know, but the power's still flowing from the system. And then we've got a little bit of time to find a flat spot when there's not so much wind and weather. And then we can, yes, access this slowly, get it down, make the connection. But if it was just a case of one of the panels is off and now that whole side of the system doesn't work, that's a problem. The fact that I can get in here, change things around, gives me more time without losing half my system. So that little 1 amp is like indicative of the way things are going, which is 3 steps forwards, 2 steps back, 3 steps forward, 4 steps back. You know how it is with boats. What else we got going on? Up in here, oh, can we put a light on? Oh my God, got lights. I definitely was not smoking in the kitchen, Mum. Absolutely not. What I was doing was putting all my tools in the kitchen. It's like the trope of the man dream of having the kitchen and the workshop combined, right? Look, we've got this space, and when we have people on board the boat, like lots of people doing a crude event, like the Fastnet, the Middle Sea Race, the ones that some of you guys are going to be joining us for, this does have some value for like people preparing big meals, particularly here. But the stove used to be just here, and then that was like dead space. Nothing really happened there. And I've got a lot of memories of people standing in this location, like waiting for the stove to boil. And my concern has always been, if there's a big wave, that the pot comes flying out and onto the person that's then trapped there. So I'm much happier about the stove being here. I'm going to upgrade from just putting the stove on top of this thing. I'm going to get rid of this 220 volt stove and put something here, whatever that is. Okay, but for now, I've got all of my, let's get my sunglasses down there. I've got rigging gear up in here. It's kind of thrown in at the moment. But these are big, deep lockers that go right back to the hull. And all of this stuff in here, and it still leaves that, and I'm sure other stuff around the boat. But it feels like there's a place I can come to. I'm working here right now, so this is on the desk, but later on, you know, when this has gone away, it is still a food preparatory surface if we need that, food preparation service if we need it. But then if it's not doing that job, it can be used for rigging. My rigging stuff is there. There's a bit of weight come forward on the boat, but let's bear in mind the base of the mast is here, and this thing I'm standing on is a giant aluminum frame. So the fact that there's now, I don't know, 50 pounds of rigging gear, like 50 pounds of rigging gear is 20 pounds of it. That guy's probably coming off, but look. Oh, my goodness. This is a turning block off this boat. Anybody knows how expensive these guys are will realize this is like gold, but this stuff needs to be somewhere. What it was previously was just back here in these lockers. And then look what happens. See this? This rust and this corrosion is because, can you see that? Sorry, up in there? That's pretty normal on boats, right? You've got to have the chain plates where you can see them. That's not too much, but it's been something that's like behind all the crap in the cupboard, out of sight. That's not good for me. I want to be able to see it. What we need to do to solve that problem is square away a little piece of equipment, which is called the escutcheon plates. The escutcheon plate is this guy. And we will have a fight later on when the rigging's off, and we will try and make escutcheon plates watertight. It's a hard job, but we'll get there. So yeah, so that's about it for today. That's the update. We've got a lot to go. We're going to the boatyard and we're going to do the bottom of the boat. We're going to probably be looking at changing the propeller because there's an issue with that. The mast is coming out and we're going to tidy up everything around the mast. So I want to get everything that's not the deck, the hull, the bottom, the prop, the mast, the rigging. All of that needs to be done like now. And then we go to the yard and do those things. And then we've got a month plus the Transat to get everything like squared away for the Fastnet. So I'm feeling pretty good. That little 1 amp coming in today, even in these overcast conditions, really gives me some hope I can get the water maker on. And then I've got like fresh water to clean the decks with, to clean the sails with, to flush the bilges with. It's going to be a lot better. So progress slowly happening here. It's only going to get faster and faster though as I move from like being at home to like really going away to sea for the end of the year, which is how it's going to be. That's my life, right? But it's a tricky transition after being at home for like 3 years with Isaac. It's a tricky thing to kind of consider, like, okay, we're going to go away and do this long term, but I think it's gonna be quite enjoyable. This is if I'm on top of the boat and the boat is functioning as it should, it can be very, very enjoyable. The problem is when it's not functioning right and you're stressed about everything, that's an awful way to work. So we're getting there. We're getting all these details sorted out. But yeah, update for now. It's looking pretty good. If you want to go racing on the boat with me for the Fastnet, for the Middle Sea Race, or some people asking about the Caribbean 600, I keep saying it, but the website's coming. Whew, man, I would rather do 100 days cold weather on deck here, struggling with all this stuff, than do admin. But I've got to make it happen. I've got half the boat filled now for Fastnet and for the Middle Sea Race. If you want to join us for that, We'll be doing about 5 days training before we set off to do the Fastnet race, which does the 300-mile qualifier that's required before any crew can do the Fastnet race. Because it's such a big boat, we can cover 300 miles like in training easily. I'll be here. There's some experienced people coming back on the boat as well, which is going to be exciting. People that already know the boat. And there's people that are doing the Fastnet and the Malta race and potentially the Caribbean 600. So that's kind of where I'd like to get to. There's like a crew of like 20 or 30 people that regularly come on the boat, come and sail with me, and we get better and better and faster. Man, what a dream that would be. So join me for that, and I'll give you another update in another couple days as we move towards Fastnet 2025. That's all for now. Cheers.